All right, we can transition into UFC 282. One replacement to announce. Robbie Lawler, unfortunately, out of the card with an injury. In replacing him against Ponzinibbio will be Alex Morono.
One other thing before the full transition, we are releasing this. Are we going to release this tomorrow morning, Kobe?
So Friday the 9th.
Friday the 9th. So if you're listening to this Friday the 9th, you have downloads on, we got you covered. Bellator 289 is tonight, Friday night, December 9th. And it's got the top 3 or 4 fights are disgusting. Must-watch television. So get out ahead of that. Bellator 289 sick. And I also have a bunch of interview clips and sound bites that will be posted on all our social medias. So enjoy that. Get invested in the storyline because Sabatello and Stotts genuinely hate each other. So if you're someone who loves to see 2 guys go to war, you're going to see it. So I'm excited for that. Oh, and Danny's boy, Magomed Magomedov, the double Magomed, rarely loses. And he's taking on Patchy Mix, which is another extremely high-level fight. So I'm juiced to the gills for Bellator 289. Would you guys like to add anything before we segue to 282? Okay. Silence is golden. Danny, you still with me?
Yes, sir.
Sweet. All right, let's get into UFC 282. So there's a pay-per-view card, and the prelims start at 5 p.m. Central. 5 p.m. Central. It will be in Vegas. And it's a pretty good pay-per-view. It's definitely not the strongest. But what I would say is the fight that leads off the card is the one that I think everyone's most excited for, the pay-per-view card that is. We'll get there, though. Stick in your seats. We're going to try to glide through this and hopefully find ourselves an ankle lock in the process. So Cameron Saaimon against Steven Koslow. And Saaimon, my bad, Dan, I'm on Bellator odds. Saaimon is minus 365, Koslow plus 300. It opened as Saaimon minus 150. And it's just gotten, so it got smashed at open all the way to like 200, 250, and then it just has continued to tail since then. So as usual, unless you're telling me Koslow, which I doubt you are, the question is, can you play Saaimon at 380?
This is a big pass for me. Coming off the Contender Series, I think he was a dog in his fight too. But Saamon's a guy who trains mainly with Dricus Du Plessis, who we'll talk about a little later. He's got a good all-around game, but it is kind of highlighted by his striking, even though he's a capable grappler. Koslow, to me, even though I couldn't find really any tape on him,
it was hard.
You look at him on paper, and he's a 10th Planet affiliate. I think he's just going to look to grapple, look for submissions. He's got 6 fights, 6 sub finishes. Really hard to lay money on either guy, whether it's a parlay or whatever. I've heard kind of through the rumor mill that this Koslow guy is really trash. Maybe stab that Saaimon inside the distance, but it really would just be that, a stab. And I don't have any kind of really huge.
Good 10th Planet, and then Koslow also had a very lengthy amateur career. Worth noting that near the tail end, he took a lot of fights like 4-2, 5-1, 6-1, 5-1, 7-2. But his pro career, he's never fought someone over 500. And so coming in here and taking on Cameron Saaimon, got a disgusting finish on the Contender Series. I think this is a layoff, and that's the best you can do. You might want to add Saaimon to a parlay, but at the straight 380, I think we missed the boat. One other thing, Saaimon, 21 years old. Why is he not the youngest guy on the card? Because Raul Rosas Jr. at 18 is the prelim capper that we'll get to in a little bit. But wild that a 21-year-old somehow is not the youngest guy in the UFC card.
Absolutely crazy.
Daniel Da Silva. Fuck this guy. Lost to Victor Altamirano. Embarrassed me in front of everybody. He's taking on Vinicius Salvador. Salvador's coming off the Contender Series. De Silva's coming off an 0-3 so far in the UFC. So I don't know what he has on Dana because he's been 0-3 with 3 finishes.
So he signed a 4-fight deal. This is his last fight on his contract. And I will say that for a guy that all he does is lose, he loses in an entertaining fashion, which Dana certainly likes. And I don't know.
Yeah,
but one reason why Dana hasn't been kind of knocking on his door earlier to say, like, get out of here. Even though he's not a
Salvador opened at minus 200. Salvador opened at minus 200. He's now minus 250. And I don't know enough about the Salvador. The only fight I've taped is the Contender Series fight, and I actually remembered watching it. Look, I mean, I won't back Daniel De Silva again because Victor Altamirano is like some of the bottom rung. And so if you're losing to him by finish, I'm out. I'm not touching you.
Not to mention the Frankie Figueiredo knee bar.
I don't even want to think about it. And so with that, I'm just like Shark Tank, I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm wiping my hands of the whole thing. Now, I wanted to run something by you, Dan. Never mind. I was going to say under, but it's under 1.5 for a flyweight fight is minus 200.
Yeah, can't be doing that.
What the fuck? I might take the over. So far, 2 passes. Erik Silva, we just mentioned him, taking on TJ Brown. We just mentioned him. So TJ Brown is glory or Erik Silva's glory?
TJ Brown was formerly a Glory MMA fighter.
Okay. So TJ Brown, Erik Silva, and it's minus 110 each way, dead split. It opened at Erik Silva minus 225. And watching the line trajectory is kind of like watching, looking down a ski slope. It's just pretty straight down. Maybe a couple moguls here and there for anyone who skis, but it's pretty straight down. And now it's at dead even. Danny, is there a lean? Because this fight intrigued me as an aspect of Erik Silva's 35. He's coming off the Contender Series. He did put together a great finish. But then TJ Brown on the other side is a guy that we've backed before, I believe against Charles Rosa. I mean, is there a spot here? 110. If you have a conviction on someone, this is a spot.
I really don't. Like you said, it's a huge red flag for me. Silva making his debut at 35 years old, making his actual professional debut only 6 years ago, versus a guy like Brown, who's a lifetime mixed martial artist, will be the better athlete in here. But kind of like you were alluding to, he's not a guy who's ever really beaten even a medium level fighter.
Yeah.
He beats up on the Kai Kamakas and the Charles Rosas, but I mean, even guys like Jordan Griffin.
Yeah, I was going to say Jordan Griffin, Danny Chavez.
Mm-hmm. And so TJ will be a capable grappler with a lot more experience. But you know what? Erik's another guy who's a capable grappler. And so it's hard for me to really find a side here. It's going to be a pass on my end.
Sorry, I was looking at Parker's communications with our future guest. Yeah, pass. Has to be a pass. I don't disagree. I think that if you had a conviction on this, let's say you've done your own taping or research, and I think either one of these guys you can make an argument for. I'm just not putting my hard-earned money there. Billy Quarantillo taking on Alexander Hernandez, 145-pound fight. And Alexander Hernandez is plus 145. Billy Q minus 170. Billy Q opened at minus 210. Alexander Hernandez getting a little love. And Dan, I'm going to start this one off because Alexander Hernandez blew on the scene with a Superman punch, I believe, over Beneil Dariush. Knocked him out cold. I was on Beneil Dariush that night, and I was watching and I freaked out. And I go, this kid is legit if he's beating Dariush like that.
Followed it up with a victory over our guy OAM.
Follows it up with a victory over OAM. And I'm like, dude, I got to buy stock in this kid.
That was a fight where OAM could have won and rolled for a heel hook. And
yeah,
That seems to bite me more than it should.
It does, doesn't it? But ever since then, it's been slow treading. And he's been coming off. It's crazy. He goes loss, win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. By that science, it's a win here. But Billy Q, a guy you like a great deal, and coming off a good performance against Shane Burgos, beating the snot out of Gabriel Mowgli Benitez. Has the price come down enough where you're tempted on Billy Q?
I'm tempted. The problem is the way that I know that both these guys fight. I think I'll get a better price after round one. And ultimately, I do think Billy Q is going to win this fight. He's an awesome fighter, both to watch and bet on. Move forward constantly. Sets an unreal pace, puts a ton of pressure on his opponent. Willing to grapple as a jiu-jitsu black belt when he thinks he has an advantage. But man, Hernandez, like you said, he's a fast starter. He's got explosive power. He's a good striker, decent wrestler, but his cardio just does not keep up. He's not the most durable. I like this spot for Billy Q. I think I'm going to love it a lot more when it's closer to even after the first round.
One thing I'm worried about with Billy Q, though, is strength inside there. Billy's more one natural 145er. Alexander Hernandez is bounced between 55 and 45, and he's strong. And so I'm wondering if you let's say this stays in the clinch or Hernandez does get the takedown. Do you think the size might be a factor at a dog price? You're getting a guy who walks around probably 10, 15 pounds heavier.
Not for 15 minutes. I think it could be a factor in that first round. But ultimately, I think Billy's going to take him to deep waters and really see what Hernandez is made of.
So to be clear, your ultimate approach here most likely is going to be a live bet round one, Billy Q.
I'm probably going to go the approach of like half my bet, like a small unit and a half before it starts, and then add on to that after round one.
Okay. I could get behind that.